Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. How are you guys doing? Happy Thursday evening. It is Thursday evening, 7 o'clock, and I am going live for my regular 30-minute or so live show that I do every Thursday in this group. I'm doing this because I think it's important to share some nutrition information and some important topics that are top of mind around how us with an autoimmune or chronic inflammation can achieve better gut health. And this is really my mission here in this group is to share with you my knowledge and my also my experience that I have been, going through ever since I was diagnosed with my Hashimoto's about 10 years ago. So let's go ahead and get started. Also, for everybody who's new here, welcome to this beautiful group. I'm happy to have you. If you happen to be live during these sessions that I do every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, please say hi in the comments. I'm always happy to connect and engage with my community. It's really important for me to create this community so that you feel safe in this space, that you get your questions answered. I'm always here to help and support you with anything. So just so you know. Um, I might just introduce myself very quickly for all of those who are new here. And also just know that I go live on StreamYard here, which means that, you know, sometimes I don't see your name. So if you post something as I'm speaking, as you're live here, um, you let me know who you are. And yeah, any comments would be appreciated. So my name is Cordula. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist. I live in Canada and I practice out of Ontario, um, just north of Toronto. And what I do in my practice is I help and support and guide autoimmune women and women with a chronic inflammation to let go of the fear of food, repair their gut, decrease food intolerances, increase energy, bring down inflammation through whole foods and a holistic lifestyle approach. When I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 10 years ago, this was the gap that I found back then. I couldn't get the answers that I needed in terms of nutrition and lifestyle in order to change my life so that I could live well with an autoimmune, which was really my goal. So that's just me for anybody who's new here. But today, let's talk a little bit about carbohydrates and the healing properties of carbs. I'm going to pull up my comments again. I'm on StreamYard, so whoever's watching live, give me a hands up, give me a comment, and let me know that you're here. And again, if you have any questions around anything that I mentioned, please feel free to ask, even if you catch this in the replay. So, when I say carbohydrates, let me know in the comments, whoever's here live. When I say carbohydrates, what food do you think of immediately? Like, what comes to mind immediately when I say carbohydrates? I would like to know if anybody would like to share. I'd be happy to read what you think. Mm. So, what I hear most of the time actually is when I start talking about carbohydrates, is people are fearful. Yes. So thank you for sharing that. Bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, and cake. Awesome. That's exactly what I actually wanted to hear because that is exactly what I hear all the time. And I would like to kind of like clarify this a little bit more because, yes, all of those food groups contain carbohydrates: bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, and cake. But what do you see? What do they all have in common? They are number one, highly processed. They're number two, you because of the highly processed, they're stripped of all of the nutrients. And it's all beige and white food, right? It's all there's no color in it. And so that is a type of carbohydrate, but this is the simple carbohydrates. That is the simple carbohydrates. That is the carbohydrate part that goes straight into your blood, that is very quickly broken down in your system, like almost immediately goes into your bloodstream and delivers that sudden burst of energy, the energy source. That is the number one energy source that your body uses. And and that's simple carbohydrates, and we get them and we need them to a certain extent. However, there is other carbohydrates that people oftentimes don't think about, and we're going to be talking about those a little bit more today because those other carbohydrates are critical for our health, especially with chronic inflammation and autoimmune disease. Before I do that, though, let's talk a little bit about the definition of carbohydrates. Like, what are carbohydrates really? So, when you think about it, there are organic molecules, and they are composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, really, when you think about it, you can see the relationship of the molecules in the word carbohydrates because it is basically hydrated carbon. Right, so it's hydrated carbon. But there are many kinds of different carbohydrates. But like we just saw, it was the quick energy that some of those deliver to the body in forms of simple carbs that really prompted science to recognize it as the main source of energy for the cells. And that's what it is. That is one purpose of it. And we need it because when we are under stress, and when we are back in the days when there was a tiger running behind us and there was a lot of stress involved and we needed to react quickly, and even now, if you're in situations where we need to react quickly, we need to have the immediate energy available in order to run, in order to, energize all of our muscles and all of these things. And that's best with, the simple carbohydrates. So they do serve a purpose. However, you know, then a little while later, the science actually discovered that this is not the end to it. So there are more carbohydrates that are actually having a little bit of a different purpose in the body. And so really two discoveries about carbohydrates has really changed the whole nutritional thinking of carbohydrates. And actually three, but I'm going to be breaking them down a little bit for you so you understand how the other carbohydrates actually work in your body. And to also, my purpose here is to make you understand that carbohydrates are not just the simple sugars that are highly processed. So when we're talking about carbohydrates as a food group, we're talking about fruit, vegetables, legumes, and these type of foods because those are also carbohydrates, right? So we're stepping away from the bread, pasta, cake, the processed thinking of carbohydrates, and allow ourselves to see carbohydrates for what they also are, which are beneficial, highly nutrient dense sugars that do certain things in our bodies, which we're going to be talking about in a minute. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you guys are excited to learn about that. So let me know in the comments if you are excited now to learn a little bit more about carbohydrates because I want to take away that fear of food from you guys. So there's really three discoveries that they made. Number one is that the biggest one was that some of the carbohydrates are not easily digested, right? So we're thinking about carbohydrates as being easily digested, just simple sugars going into your body, being broken down, giving you the immediate energy. Um, but but there are other carbohydrates that are not easily digested. And they are important because of just that, because they're not easily digested. And that is called resistant starch, right? So resistant starch is also a carbohydrate and it's super, super important in your body and your body needs it because of the fact that it's not digested in your body very easily. So what it does is actually it is not being digested in your stomach and your small intestine at all. It basically just goes through these things intact until it reaches your colon, right? And it reaches the colon in like almost it's the way it came in because of its purpose of feeding your good bacteria. So your good bacteria love resistant starch, right? So resistant starch is something that is immediate food for your good bacteria, which can really help to balance your dysbiosis in your body. So if you're new here, if you don't know what dysbiosis is, let me know in the comments. I can talk a little bit about dysbiosis, but so this is something that is feeding your microbiome, that is bringing your basically your gut bacteria back into balance with that food. Okay, so keep in mind resistant starch. And really, since they say the 1990s, there has been hundreds of studies conducted on resistant starch because it comes with so many health benefits. Um, it's scooped up by your bacteria and it is then being used by the bacteria as food. So your bacteria really grows and gets nourished and just diversifies so much. What is it? Dysbiosis. Yeah, so dysbiosis really is the fancy term for bacteria imbalance in your body, the imbalance between good and bad bacteria in your body, which can cause a lot of GI issues, and which we often, I would say, always deal with when we are dealing with chronic inflammation. It's gut dysbiosis. So that's what it is. Yeah, so keep that in mind, the resistant starch. And the other thing that they discovered was, another carbohydrate, which, you know, has been shown to be very important for health is the discovery of the oligosaccharides. So the oligosaccharides are really short sugar chains. So they're not just the simple sugars with just a few molecules, they actually have the longer chain sugar chains. And when those oligosaccharides bind with fructose, everybody knows fructose, one of the simple sugars, they actually also behave like resistant starches. Same thing. They're making their way to the intestine to feed the bacteria. So there you can see that the and that's when we go into the complex carbs, right? This is what our complex carbs, that's one thing that our complex carbs do for us. The longer chained sugars that just take so much longer for your body to break down and digest, which then delivers energy, but in a more sustainable format. It does it by it takes longer to for your body to actually release the sugar in those from those foods, which keeps your blood sugar stable, right? So if you find yourself that you're getting these afternoon slumps or that you're having really hard time to keep your energy up and that you kind of like on that roller coaster of sugar crashes and then your body craves something sweet and then you eat something sweet and then you find that you get your focus back and all of these things and then you crash again, that is you are truly on a blood sugar roller coaster ride, right? And so the complex carbs come in very handy here. They deliver that energy to your cells that your cells need in order to function, but they also break apart a little bit more slowly so that it can really help your blood sugar to stay stable. I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if that makes sense to you guys. Um, so yeah, and besides the fact that it keeps your blood sugar stable, it can then also has the added benefit from those oligosaccharides as well as the resistant starches to be super beneficial to your gut bacteria, which is just it's so critical because your immune system basically sits in your gut. So that is something to keep in mind. Um, yeah, so we talked about the complex carbs, we talked about the oligosaccharides, and we talked about the resistant starch. And along those lines, I also want to share with you guys is that carbohydrates are also fiber. Fiber is a huge part of carbohydrates, and fiber really doesn't have a specific scientific name in the science community or in the nutrition world. um, Fiber is actually something that is the term in itself is just very broad because under the term of fiber, there are so many different compounds that are fibrous and that do certain things in your body. But for the sake of just keeping this simple, is let's talk a little bit about the dietary fiber, which has immense health benefits for your immune system and other parts in your system. So when you think about fiber, some of them you might have heard even is pectin, for example. Pectin is one of the dietary fibers. Then you have the um, mucilaginous fiber that makes food really, jelly like chia seeds and stuff. And then you have the fructooligosaccharides, which we just talked about, the long chain sugars. And they all have different values in your body. And I'm just going to give you a few here for you to wrap your head around what they do. There are so many, but just a few for you to understand what they do is, well, number one, they reduce inflammation. And the way they do that, the ones that I talked about specifically or mentioned specifically right now is they actually add value to your stool weight, right? Your stool weight, they bring bulk to your stool and they can really help you get a better transit time. So when I say transit time, I'm talking about how long it takes for your food to get through your body. And oftentimes, if you find yourself constipated or your bowel movements are all over the place, then your transit time is not good, right? Which can lead to so many issues, including heightened inflammation in your GI tract, right? So this is just something that the dietary fiber can help you with, thereby reducing inflammation, and as well as like I always say, they increase your microbiota, so your good bacteria in your gut through dietary fiber. There's so many of them. It's I teach on those when I speak with my clients and in my private practice, but just for the sake of you guys understanding that dietary fiber is a part of carbohydrates. So when we say as a summary, when we talk about carbohydrates, I really want you to step away from the thought of bread, pasta, um, rice and cake, like you guys mentioned in the comments, because that is not all. There's to the carbohydrates. They're not just simple sugars like that. When we think about carbohydrates, we think about usually processed foods that are stripped of all its fiber. And to tell you the truth, unfortunately, there are so many simple sugars in our world right now, in the grocery stores, hidden in sauces, in processed crackers, in like sauces and dips and everything. There's so many just processed carbs everywhere. Even the pasta that you get, highly processed, stripped of all of their nutritious values, the fiber, the dietary fiber, that is really the other part to carbs that are beneficial. So I want you to think about, when you think about carbs, I want you to think about fruit. I want you to think about vegetables, whole grains, ancient grains, and legumes. This is what I want you to think about when we talk about carbs. And this is what I want you to understand the value of resistant starches, root vegetables. All of the root vegetables have amazing amounts of resistant starch in them. So I want you to stop fearing those foods because they are not the ones that are, putting the weight on you if you struggle with weight. They're not the ones who are going to um, get your blood sugar up and down. Those are the ones who are actually going to be benefiting you long term to bring down inflammation. All right, you guys. I hope that was helpful. That was a little bit about carbohydrates and the healing properties of carbs. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you have any more questions around carbohydrates, please reach out to me, DM me. I'm always here to um, answer any questions that you might have for your own personal health or general questions around those things. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening and that you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I will talk to you again very soon next week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a great night.